right, good evening. Welcome to the Farron Dozier Show on KCAA Radio, 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. Also streaming from the KCAA Radio.com website and MBRadio.us. We got to bless the show before we get started. Let's go. When I was in my mother's womb, I had a calling on my life to do something in the glory of God and marry it like a wife. Commit myself to his word and never be led astray. And when it's all over, when he comes, I'll be glad to see that day in the morning time. All right, good evening. Welcome to the Farron Dozier Show on KCAA Radio, 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. Also streaming from the KCAA Radio.com website and MBRadio.us. We got to bless the show before we get started. Let's go. When I was in my mother's womb, I had a calling on my life to do something in the glory of God and marry it like a wife. Commit myself to his word and never be led astray. And when it's all over, when he comes, I'll be glad to see that day in the morning time.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at MBRadio.us.
Some of us still carry the burden of battle. It threatens to drown us in our everyday lives. In battle, we had our weapons and combat gear to keep us safe, to keep us confident. But when we returned home, we were not armed with weapons and gear to cope with our own minds. I was lucky to find my combat gear, my mental weapon, and it's called Calmago. Calmago is a drug-free device that allows you to achieve calm in less than 3 minutes in moments of anxiety, stress, anger, panic, or insomnia, not with medication, but rather by activating the parasympathetic nervous system through breathing regulation and multisensory stimulation. A recent study has shown that Calmago decreases PTSD and anxiety levels in veterans, helping those who are suffering and having a long-lasting effect. Visit Calmago.com to learn how you can get Calmago through the VA or with a special veterans discount code.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm blessed, my brother. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Hey, did you see the game last night?
Oh, that was a good game.
But did you see the shot?
I lost money from that shot.
Oh,
too,
man, that shot was cold,
I
man.
hated it, but it was good. Damn. What's in those jeans?
You really want to know?
I do.
Exhaustion, muscle spasms, asthmatic issues, unexpected sickle cell trait crises.
Damn. Are you serious? When I was young, I found out I had sickle cell trait. My mom's told me, but I ain't have no knowledge of it. But when I got older, I had a child, and the doctor told me my daughter has sickle cell trait. Do you know the facts that both parents have sickle cell trait? There's a 50% chance the child may have the trait, and 25% chance the child may have the disease.
Hey, that's what's the count. Do you know that 2.5 million people in the United States have sickle cell trait, 300 million people globally? I didn't find out I had sickle cell trait until I was in the Army, 10 years. Next thing you know, I had a sickle cell trait exertion site.
Sickle cell? I thought that was a black gene or something.
Nah, man, the Latin community is number 2. 1 out of 36,000 babies are being born with sickle cell disease. You could be Caucasian, Mediterranean, European. You gotta know your bloodline, man. There is an inherited gene in our community that has been forgotten. The name is sickle cell trait. WDCONSCT, also known as What's the Count, is out to bring awareness, education, and prevention to people all over the globe. Want more information? Call us now at 323-215-5384 or visit www.wdconsct.org. You're listening to the Farron Dozier Show on KCAA Radio, 106.5 FM, 1050 AM in the Inland Empire. Also streaming from the KCAA Radar.com website, MBRadio, TuneIn Radio, Pandora, Google Play, Blog Talk Radio, iHeartRadio, Podcast, Stitcher, Amazon Radio, just to list a few. Oh yeah, and the streaming videos are located at Tiki Live or Rumble under the Farron Dozier Show. Catch us live or catch us on the archives at the Farron Dozier Show. Shout us out, what's the count? Visit farrond.com for more information. All right, welcome to another episode of the Farron Dozier Show. Shouts out to Robert Lamar, man. Where you at, man? You were supposed to be here, man. I got you up here on the screen and stuff, man. This is from last time. How's everybody doing? I appreciate you for listening in. Again, this is the Farron Dozier Show on KCAA Radio 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. Also streaming from the KCAA Radio.com website and MBR radio platforms as well. So wherever you are, you can go get the app. How about that? Both of the platforms have apps. So go get the KCAA radio app or go get the MBR radio app. How's that? So you can listen to us from wherever you are on the planet, pretty much, if you go do that. But also, again, we're streaming from the website on KCAA radio. Also in the Inland Empire, if you are in your car, listen to us on 106.5 FM or 1050 AM. You can also, again, in your device, type in kcradio.com and listen to us from your smartphones or your laptops. I want to make this announcement as the owner of the Ventura Orcas. That's it right there. We will be launching this year for the 2024-2025 season. So if you are interested in playing for us, if you're interested in being a partner with us in the community, we have some initiatives, some platforms, some programs around sickle cell trait and veteran suicide, youth suicide, emotional intelligence. Those are the things that we're going to put in front of this basketball team, because it's more than just playing basketball for me. So we're going to take care of the community, take care of the youth. The Ventura Orcas, go to orcasaba.com to sign up, to hit me up if you have some questions. But we are going to be looking for players next month. We're looking for a coach. We're looking for some staff, people to take stats, things like that, volunteers. Again, we are just going to have some fun with this basketball platform, bring some sickle cell trait awareness through the ABA, through our platform, raise some funds as well, because it's not free. So we're going to just take care of all the things that we want to. But if you are out in Ventura County and you have a conversation that you want to talk about, you can use our basketball platform and share your partnership with us. So we're accepting all different conversations in the community. We have a couple that we want to make sure that we focus on. However, the 2024-2025 ABA season, I threw my hat over the fence. So now I got to go figure out how to get my hat back. So if you want to sponsor some games, you want to get some tickets, orcasaba.com has all the information about that. If you want information about my sickle cell trait awareness campaign, wdconsct.org. It's all connected. And we're going to have some fun. 18 and over for the ABA. If you're in college, we push, go to school, right? The ABA platform will be there. But if you are still chasing a hoop dream, you've played overseas, or you just want to get an opportunity to play semi-pro ball with us and maybe make it to the next level, you'll be able to have your footage. The team is going to cover all the travel, things like that. So if you're interested, we're looking for the ABA players, but we're going to have a development squad as well, so that we can have a pool of players that we're training and developing to come up to the next level with us. But also we're going to have the junior Orcas, which will be our children, to play for either, boys and girls or co-ed. However we design it together as a community, it works. So that's what's next on the menu. You can catch me on Lit Live at God's House of Hip Hop, 7 o'clock on Saturdays and 5 o'clock on Sundays, the Revolution Radio Show. You can catch us there. That's my Christian hip hop conversation with J Love and Lillian. We do that over there. Where else? Beyond 2D is coming back in July. I've been on jury duty, so yeah, since May. So we'll see how that goes. But we should be back in July with the Beyond 2D. And of course, here Sunday nights on KCAA Radio and MBR. What else? I think that's it. I'm just going to bring up my guy, Alan.
Yes.
What up, yo?
I thought you said no hat this week.
You know, that was yesterday.
That was yesterday.
That was yesterday, yeah. But it does. You see how it does kind of like dims my light?
I think it's great.
Dims my light right there.
There we go.
What's up with you, man? How you doing?
You know, I'm doing amazing. I'm enjoying being alive. We are here. We are on KCAA Radio, MBRadio. I mean, what else do you want? Like, this is
Sunday night.
It's Mental Health Awareness Month. And tonight's conversation, I'm not gonna lie, I'm super excited about tonight's conversation. I know I say that a lot, but I'm super, super excited about tonight's conversation because I think it could really help somebody out there. So we're focusing on men, but we're focusing on a particular kind of man, probably stereotypically speaking, on the corner who has a certain lifestyle and appears a certain way. And I feel like tonight's conversation could really bring the humanity around how we get to be who we are.
Yeah, for sure.
Because a lot of times, like, you know, we see people with the facade, we don't know who they really are.
Nah.
So
or how they wound up to be who they are today, right?
Yeah, and we make a lot of assumptions.
All right, so I like to start this off with, you know, as men, and I don't even use this word, but vulnerable, right?
Right.
It even hurts saying because I made a decision at 14 with this 14-year-old girlfriend that I'm not going to be vulnerable. When we broke up, when she broke up with me, I told myself I'm not going to be vulnerable, and I have to defend myself in relationships. Now, for a 14-year-old teenager, and the pain that it felt from that breakup, it was like that. But that's what I made it mean. That was the decision I made to survive that pain.
Can I say also,
that emotional pain?
Can I say that it's remarkable that after you've done the work, because I consider you, if anything, a person who is on that journey of healing, because I never think you really got there. You never get there until you die. But I think you are at your pinnacle. You are that person that's climbing, that's at the top, looking down and pulling somebody up. Like, come on, you could do this too. I know that about you.
If I can,
if you could do it, I could do it. Yeah. So you have that kind of, and it's interesting though, when we talk about how you got to where you are, you were 14 when you made the decision that you're not going to be vulnerable with another woman. And 14. That, you know what that means, right? That means that has to be, and by the way, this is Alan Emanuel, the happiness coach, because I want to make sure, you know, because sometimes I come on as the therapist, and but the reason I bring that up is because it really has to do with the character, which is part of the happiness coaching that I teach. It's like, how did you become that so early? A part of it is we catch this conversation. What we don't realize is kids, very young boys, right? Since we're talking about men in this conversation, particularly, like very young boys are determining what kind of people they choose to be on the basis of conversations that sometimes maybe they never even had with anybody. It was all in their head. But they're going to become this person. And sometimes it's the storyline that's in your head that's creating that. Tell us how that happened. I'm not interviewing you, but I kind of feel like
you want me to touch that a little bit?
Yeah. How'd you get there?
So real quick, so at this girl at 14, I don't even know how she became my girlfriend. That's the whole trip. Like, I can't even remember her becoming my girlfriend because I played basketball, which was my identity, right? Yeah. To connect to my friends at the new school. So I'm the new kid at the school. So I go play on basketball to make friends.
Yeah.
So that's my identity now.
You're right.
Right. That's who I get to be. And so I just remember her standing on the side, you know, making eye contact. And then one day I'm walking her to class and she's my girlfriend.
And that was it.
And that was it.
Right? Man, that was easy back then.
That was easy. It was easy back then, right? But then a couple of times I remember her telling me, hey, you're not paying attention to me. Right? Because I'm playing basketball morning when I get to school, recess, lunch, after school.
Well, that's what you were looking for was
Well,
basketball.
that was my identity. Yes. So she would tell. She told me a few times, "Hey, you're not paying attention to me." So I'm like, "Oh, okay. Go back to paying attention to her." But I veered back to the court. So this last time, my buddy says, "Hey, I haven't seen your girl. You seen your girl today?" Like I'm like, you know what? No, I ain't seen her today. He's like, "Yeah, you know why? Because she's talking to him." And I was like, "What?" And this was at lunch going into 5th period. Okay. And so I was like, "Oh my gosh." So I go to class. I can't find her in between 5th and 6th period. So I find her after school. And I said, hey, what's going on? I didn't see you. She's like, "Oh, I told you wasn't paying attention to me."
And this is what I'm gonna do about it.
and I'm like, so can you give me another chance? Like let me make the correction. She's like, "No, I told you wasn't paying attention to me. Matter of fact, you're not the guy for me." And so in that moment, I'm standing in the hallway of everybody's passing by, and it's like, in that moment of that, I said, okay, I'm not gonna be vulnerable, and I have to defend myself in relationships.
And what? Wait, say it again. You're not gonna be vulnerable, and what?
And I have to defend myself in relationships.
Got it.
And I walk home heartbroken, but now to not feel that pain anymore that I felt in my gut, I'm not gonna be vulnerable. So, and I have to defend myself. Now, I don't even know what that was going to look
later on in your life.
Oh my goodness, bro! Let me tell you. First of all, I'm not. If you want to talk to me, she has to come to me because I'm not approaching no more, right? So now I'm a fly on the wall, and she has to make eye contact with me, and she has to approach me to say, "Hey, I want to talk to you." Because you're not going to be vulnerable. Because I'm not going to be vulnerable. Now, there were days that if I had the level of confidence and I thought she was cute or whatever, then maybe I would go make that approach, right? And then I would make that contact. But for the most part, I did not reach out to girls because I'm not doing it because of the pain that I felt.
And that was a story you told at that moment when you had that. And every other girl.
Oh, today I can tell you, no girl had a chance.
Right.
Even in my failed marriages too, I sabotaged those.
How did you sabotage?
Because when I found the girl that I liked, I'm not going to be vulnerable. And even if I got in a toxic relationship that I know is toxic, I know it's no good for me.
Yeah.
I can make it better. I'm defending myself. No, I could do it. Give me a chance. And I know it's toxic, but I can't get out.
So it's like 2 very toxic cycles that you committed to at 14 and you committed to, and it shows up every time you have a relationship.
Oh, and the most important ingredient was the abandonment issue that I had from my mother at 8.
Okay.
So now you compound the 8-year-old, I'm abandoned. I'm going to be left alone by a woman because I can't trust my mom because she left me alone. Now that's also in the background of the 14-year-old situation.
Yep.
That was the final straw of, okay, I'm not going to be vulnerable and I got to defend myself. So now I'm living with women.
Well, let's unpack that for a second because that 14-year-old that said, I'm not going to be vulnerable, had he already known that he was going to be abandoned? Had he already experienced
I don't think that one was there.
So it happened.
It was
after.
It added to that.
So it's almost like that 14-year-old was the crux of the start of that story.
Oh, yeah.
And then it continued with mom.
Well, mom was first.
So mom first. Okay,
yeah,
so that's what I was trying to clarify. So mom happened first. And then after, mom's like, what was the story of my mom?
So my mom, it's a transition. We call it the transition. So uprooting from my grandparents' house from 2 years old to 8 years old. My mom marries my middle sister's dad. They pick me up, bring me to the apartment. But now I'm coming home by myself. And my mom says, latchkey kid, 1978. Here's the key to the apartment. I'm leaving you. When you come home, lock the door. Don't go outside. Don't.
Yep.
All I heard my mom say was, I'm leaving you. And that pain was like, oh my God, why are you leaving me? I could have stayed at my grandmother's house. Why? I can't trust her. I can't trust my mom because she's going to leave me.
And that has to have happened.
And I got to be responsible because now I got this key to this apartment that I can't lose because if I lose the key, I can't get in the house. I'm going to get a whooping. And so now I become responsible but I feel abandoned.
So you felt abandoned, responsible for something that you didn't feel you should be responsible at the time. And you also felt like that abandonment showed back up at 14 with that girl. So you...
Well, that 14 added another layer
of abandonment
of how I looked at women.
Okay.
So I already had the thing with my mom in the background, which I don't know if that was at 14, but the 14 decision. So we make three decisions, core decisions.
Yeah.
The first two are our parents.
Yep.
Natural break, and then the third one is our peers.
Yep.
Well, that was my peer decision because it affected women, girls, and boys. Because now my friend who's dating my girl can't trust. So all of that is mixed in there. But I'm 14. I couldn't articulate that to you back then.
No, you have no clue what you're feeling. You have no clue what you're experiencing in your head. You are just going through this experience, and it's starting to dig in so deep. I'm gonna say it probably became your identity at that time.
Oh, bro, I can tell. Like I said, when I got a girlfriend, and when my mind said she's gonna leave you, right? Because my mind's telling me, nobody told me. My mind says, "Oh, you know she's gonna leave you." Then this could be 2 weeks into the relationship. This could be 2 years into the relationship. This could be 5 years into. But at some point, my brain said, "You know she's gonna leave you." And then,
how does that show up?
All right. So and then I'm not being vulnerable, and I gotta defend myself. So if it's a toxic relationship, I gotta make it work. I gotta fix it. Let me fix it.
That's the defending. I'm going to defend myself.
Right. Or if it's the abandonment shows up by itself, then I'm gonna go find somebody else, because if you're gonna leave me, then I gotta go make sure I don't feel that pain. So I'm gonna meet somebody else. But guess what? Now I got 2 girlfriends, because maybe this girl was never gonna leave me anyway. But my mind said she was. So of course, guess what's gonna happen? She's gonna leave because I'm no longer talking to her or associating with her. So she's forced to leave.
Right. So
then might get to be right, because my mind says, "See, I told you." But the fear was, I got 2 girlfriends. Guess what? Well, what's going to happen when they both find out about each other?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. I'm really going to be in trouble. So I go find another girl.
So hold on. Slow it down, because some people are gonna need to hear this. So you got the second girl because you were convinced that the first one was leaving.
Convinced.
That's abandonment.
Convinced.
And you also were not willing to be vulnerable anyway, which probably led to some of that leaving reality.
Well, for sure.
So now you got the second one, but now you juggling two. You become the player.
I'm the player.
So and that's why we're calling this the player conversation.
so now I'm labeled with my peers as a player, and I'm like, but I'm not a player.
But you like, that's not me.
To myself, myself, I'm not. That's not. But you got.
But that's what they're seeing.
Oh, you got 2 girlfriends. Oh, I'm
see,
like,
this is what I was talking about. And I say, you see people, but you don't know who you're seeing. You just seeing the outward presentation of how all of our mask, all of the things that we put up, the defense mechanisms, so that we could show up a certain way in the world. When in fact, underneath, we're all just human.
I was so afraid and hurt. So now I got 3 girls, and it's like, oh shoot!
You play a player.
I'm like, so what's going to happen when one crosses another?
They gonna find out.
So then I'm like, okay, then I gotta leave those 3 alone. I go find somebody else. So now there's 4, and I've had at least 5 when I was younger, in my early 20s. At least 5.
At the same time.
Because I was afraid that each one was gonna. So, and when they found out, of course, you're a cheater and all this stuff. But in my mind, like I didn't know what I was doing.
No, you just like, I'm trying to exist
in this relationship cycle, to not be alone. But I'm actually sabotaging. I'm hurting women. I'm lying. Like all that came from me trying to protect that 8-year-old decision and the 14-year-old decision about who Farron had to be in relationships.
And Farron, this is where the conversation starts. Because I think there are a lot of men who are living similar experiences without a story. They don't even know what the story is. They never stopped long enough to say, is there a story? Am I doing this because of something that happened before and I didn't fully process what I'm doing, or why I'm existing the way I'm existing? I can tell you just from the work that I do as a coach, happiness coach for people's lives, that this is a common story.
Mm-hmm.
It's a story of, how do I exist in the world where I'm safe first? And I'm going to be honest with you. There is a zeitgeist story going on, I guess you might call it, or the existence of a trend that says the only thing that matters is you take care of you.
Yeah.
The fact is, the only thing that matters isn't you. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't take care of you. The therapist hat, when I put that on, says, if you don't take care of you, you can't take care of nobody. So we're going to be real. You got to take care of you. And as a matter of fact, if we talk about your story in its entirety, you had to go back and go through your own conversation within your head to even talk about that story. But what we cannot do is ignore the fact that story that was inside of your head, it wasn't just about you, because you just said other people were affected by the results. It's like ripples in your life.
Oh yeah, I sabotaged, destroyed. I probably messed up a relationship that would have lasted a lifetime, but my behavior and it's so unfortunate, because that word being vulnerable, like you couldn't pay me.
Right.
You couldn't pay me to even say it.
Right. What you mean?
You couldn't even, I wouldn't even say, like, even even after I started this healing journey 14 years ago, and I discovered that 14 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And
that's crazy. It's been 14 years, but yeah.
Yes. And along the way, there was so much attached to the 8-year-old that I had to peel off. It wasn't just the abandonment from my mom. When I discovered that, I healed my mom with that area. But guess what else I had to heal from? The key.
Yep. Tell us about the key.
The key. Look, the key was a string around my neck, and then we went to Zodi's and bought some shoes called kangaroos, because the kangaroos had a pocket on the shoe, so I could put the key in the pocket. So I made sure I ain't gonna lose my shoe. So I knew if I put the key in my shoe, I'm not gonna lose the key. That was number one. But how the key played out in my life is I joined the military, and I picked one of the most responsible jobs that you can have in the military is a supply sergeant, which I had keys.
You had to have the keys to everything.
I had the keys to and I had to keep track, to be responsible, from a paper clip to a tank. All that came through me. And so I even reinforced to prove to myself that I was responsible.
You're responsible. And you know what's really interesting about that? These stories that we tell about ourselves have meanings that we very seldom, listen to what I'm saying, we very seldom explore about ourselves.
Exactly.
You see, it is rare that you have a human being who says, let me explore where this story came from for me. And yet, in relationships, we refuse to even see how they connect to who we decide to be in that relationship. So men tend to be the ones that say, I'm not going to no therapy. I'm not talking to no coach. I'm not having a, what? I don't need it.
Let alone talk to the girlfriend.
I don't need it. That's because not realizing that they're living in a cycle in their own heads. Creating meanings and not even sure what the meaning is. And then here's the deep part, saying, I am such and such after it, without question. Because once you say I am, and I've said this several times in this conversation of the mental health, right? Awareness. Once you say I am, and you put that afterwards, your identity has now ingrained in you that this is what I have to act out.
and it's usually a negative. I'm not good enough. So mine became, I'm not good enough. I'm not worth it. And that was early in my childhood years, teenage years, with that girl. I'm not good enough. I'm not worth it. And all that is also in the background I'm carrying.
Tell us how that showed up in those relationships. Like, well
again, in the moment that I'm about to be abandoned by this girl, or during the relationship, the courting phases, I'm not good enough, so I'm not going to pick the right place to go have dinner. I'm not going to pick the right Valentine's Day card. I'm not going to pick the right Christmas present. I'm not going to, because I'm not good enough.
Right. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Itself. And so, of course, they're going to be mad because I didn't.
For those who don't know what a self-fulfilling prophecy is, so just to be clear, because most people will know, but some may not know. So like a self-fulfilling prophecy is simply that by the belief that you have in something, you start to actually pick up the information. Essentially, the process of picking up information, you're funneling it through this belief that you have. And as you funnel it through, you start to enact the very thing.
You collect the evidence.
And the very thing that you believe is starting to show up in your life as a cyclical reaction to your belief systems. So that's what's happening there.
And they would say, oh, you know, whatever I got was fine. Even if I bought something that was fine, in my mind, it still wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
It still wasn't good enough.
And you know, the therapist hat, right, comes on, and I'm like, all the time. We hear this all the time. I do a lot of therapy with men who have similar experiences, right? A lot of men who come in and they're like, you know, I don't feel like I'm able to open up in the romantic situation simply because I already have a story that I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
And here's the interesting conversation now. Ladies, pick up your pen and start writing. The women in many of these men's lives see the men as cold. They see that this guy is not interested, not there, cold, because the narrative inside could be, I'm not good enough. I'm never gonna. And sometimes it can be reinforced in a cycle where, because of what's happening, they start to say, well, you're not doing it right. You're right. And that just reinforces what the person already has, the man's idea, right? We're talking about just this cycle. They already have it in their minds.
And we can't speak for you women, ladies, but you also may have your own that I'm not good enough, I'm not worth it, that you're dealing. So now we're both coming together with this conversation silently, that we're both not good enough for each other.
And nobody's having that conversation inside of their relationship. They're talking about the other stuff happening. You understand what I'm saying? So they're talking about the other stuff, and people are not digging deep enough. And then when you say, well, you need therapy, it's like, I don't need therapy.
Yeah.
So this is the cycle that we have created inside of these socialized norms and these stories that we tell to ourselves. You understand? So these stories that we tell to ourselves, or let's be honest, sometimes the stories are told to us as kids. You know what I mean? There are some stories that have been told that you have to untell.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You have to untell that story. You have to ask yourself, at what age was I when I heard that first story? And when did I say that was me?
But I got to take this PSA break. But that was, I'll come back from the break and tell you, that's the work that I had to do. When I trusted those principles that was outside of me to challenge that, because if you tell the truth, you remember the stories in your mind about your mom, about your dad, about your peers, and you wonder, why do I remember that? Why is that story so significant? Why is that so significant? Why do I remember that? Why do I have a feeling in my body when I think about that? That's a negative pain, or, well, guess what? It's probably connected to one of those core decisions that you've been living from that you forgot, or who you had to become to survive that pain, right? But this is the Farron Dozier Show on KCAA Radio, 106.5 FM, 1050 AM, and MBR Radio. I see you over there, DBC. I'm going to bring you up on stage in a minute, man. We got Alan Emanuel here, the happiness coach. Like I said, I don't have a problem telling my story because the healing that I've done, I'm not triggered by it. And if somebody calls me, hey, what's up, player? You know what? It was a good story. It's in my inspirational read, Life of a 14-year-old. I'm not triggered by that because I own my past. I took 100% responsibility for my past because I made up those stories from my dad and my mom and my peers and the other ones in between too, right? But this one tonight is important because as men, how do we become what we say vulnerable to our partner, that when we share these kind of stories, that they don't take this story and then weaponize it up against us later in an argument, because I'm trying to share with you of my journey and how I am today, but then you take that upset and then you're going to use that against me because now you think I'm still a player.
Right.
Well, I'm fat. I don't want to be a player no more.
That's what you should have had.
I need that right there on the outro. We'll be right back to Farron Dozier Show on KCAA Radio, MBRadio. Shout out, what's the count?
Some of us still carry the burden of battle. It threatens to drown us in our everyday lives. In battle, we had our weapons and combat gear to keep us safe, to keep us confident. But when we returned home, we were not armed with weapons and gear to cope with our own minds. I was lucky to find my combat gear, my mental weapon, and it's called Calmago. Calmago is a drug-free device that allows you to achieve calm in less than 3 minutes. In moments of anxiety, stress, anger, panic, or insomnia, not with medication, but rather by activating the parasympathetic nervous system through breathing regulation and multisensory stimulation. A recent study has shown that Calmago decreases PTSD and anxiety levels in veterans, helping those who are suffering and having a long-lasting effect. Visit Calmago.com to learn how you can get Calmago through the VA or with a special veterans discount code.
All right, we are back on the Farron Dozier Show, MBR Radio, KCAA Radio. Shouts out to my Sport Collective crew. Football season coming up, y'all, so you know they're going to be getting down with the football topics and the sports topics real soon. Shouts out to Robert Lamar, Coach Will. What else? Oh, let me get DBC up here. DBC, are you there, man? I'm going to bring you up. Are you there, DBC? You on mute?
Can you hear me?
What up, yo?
What's going on?
Jody, aka Driven by Christ. That's my teammate right there, man. What's happening, bro?
Man, I was enjoying y'all conversation, man. You know.
Yeah. It's been years.
Man.
Years. That's like a full pass.
We just felt like it was time to bring this subject up, Jody, man, because there's so much going on with men. And you and I, we talk about this all the time. We're always talking about relationships and, you know, trying to find the next one, or what are we going to do? Who we going to be? How are we going to make it work this time around? All those kind of talks. So Jody and I, we talk, you know, I have him as my listening ear as well. So we do a lot of chit chatting because it's rough out there right now, man. Anything you want to say about that, Jody? What do you want to say about that, man?
As far as like when women in relationships?
Yeah, just being for you. And so I want to tell you a story, but his wife passed about 12 years ago. So biblically, he's free to find a new wife and do whatever, you know, for himself. But at the same time, the grieving that comes with that. Yeah. So talk about that, Jody, real quick.
Yeah, it's a fear. But I'm kind of getting better as the day goes on. As time move ahead, I'm looking to date somebody, but there's always been a fear there, you know. And I messed up a real good friendship. I had me and her were really good friends. Right after my wife passed, I knew her before I met my wife. We went to junior high school together, but I ended up marrying my wife. And me and her was really good friends. So after my wife passed, me and her was still friends. And then I didn't know at that time, we just came together and started dating. And that messed up a really good friendship. You know, once sex came into play, that tore up the whole relationship, man.
So what story did you tell DBC at that time about that, about what it meant?
Well, she always would say, "Don't compare her to my wife." I would never do that. You
Right.
know, she always would bring up my wife, and that kind of pushed me back a little bit. You know, but I'm at the age now where I'm willing to let go and let God, you know, and find me somebody. You know, my youngest daughter just got married, so I'm getting older. So, you know, I'm just ready to find me, you know, that help meet again, you know, and forget all about, just start over, you know, and don't let those little seeds of doubt be in my heart and my head, you know. Just take a chance. And my wife always would tell me, she said, "Man, if I die," she said, "please live your life." And she came to me in a dream, which was really like blew me away. She said, "Let me go." She told me to let her go and live my life. And that's what I'm trying to do now, you know,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
life is worth living, you know.
Absolutely. And you know what's interesting about that is, you know, there are different aspects to it, but it's almost all the same story, which is you're having that conversation in your head on how to live in the moment from
Yeah.
something that happened in the past. You see what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
that's and it really sometimes it'll hold you hostage because of the fact that it has such a weight in the meaning that you gave it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's letting go of that meaning that you had with it so you could see what's in front of you. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's
Bro,
it's
I
an
can't.
easy thing to happen.
I can't. I love this guy, Jody. I love this guy. I can't even imagine the vulnerability that it's going to take to find another wife or to find somebody.
Yeah.
Like I get where he's at, and that's why we talk and we don't push each other, you know. But I can't even imagine how that would feel.
Right.
Having my spouse pass away, and then now I got to be vulnerable with in 2024.
I
Right.
know,
In
man.
2024.
Because it's a whole different story today.
It's a different story. So we're talking about, you know, the basis of this is about us men being vulnerable, and we got 3 different stages right here, right? And it's like, how do we have a conversation to where I can open up and share my life in a way that I have the confidence and courage to be able to share that and not worry about how I'm going to feel if you. So what I'm saying is the fear of being judged.
Yep.
First of all, I believe that is one of the core issues that we deal with is that fear of being judged. If I tell you the truth about what I'm dealing with, then you might not like me. You might not be my friend.
And you said something earlier too, Farron, where you said, and also the fear of being judged in the future, which is like
Exactly.
you might use what I am still trying to figure out right now in my future to tell me who I get to be, which is a very destabilizing and it paralyzes a lot of men. And again, that is read oftentimes by their partners like, oh, you don't want to talk about it. You don't want to be open. You don't want to be vulnerable. When in fact, it's I have a deep fear underneath of how to navigate that well, right? Because it could be used against me. Because it could become a thing that I have to worry about now. Because you now know that it's the hardest part for me to figure out, right?
Especially if you have proof of it being weaponized by someone in your past. So that's already a wedge or a wound that, okay, now I got to be guarded.
Right.
But yet, as men, we suffer in silence. Still. So one of the things that when I heard the guys talk about that yesterday, I said, well, look, I went back to the Bible. I said, well, Adam was by himself before Eve got there. So who did Adam have to talk to for that amount of time? It was God. So as men, we got to go to God for our conversation first. Pray, deal with it, take it to him, seek some help like a coach, mental health courses, things like that. So you can take that story, that thought process, and put it up against something outside of you to challenge the reality of it. Is this a real story? Is it exaggerated? How do I feel? Blah, blah, blah. Like, do that work maybe before you bring it to your partner, right? So that way you have the ability to articulate that. So when you deliver that message to her, it's not from a judgmental, fear-based conversation. It's more of an empowering, like, hey, check this out. I went through this. I looked at it. I went to my therapist. I looked at the Bible, and this is what I came up with this story. And guess what? I also have a other side of this that's given me some strength and some confidence. And I want to tell you because maybe in our relationship, I've been holding back from you, and I discovered that this is where it's coming from. Now, how do you feel about that? And then now we're not dumping that on her, and we brought to the table the before, the during, and the after. And I'm actually now empowered. So I want to share with you because I'm taking responsibility, because maybe you've been suffering over here about me being cold. And so, yeah, I've been cold, but this is why I've been cold, and I recognize it. So now let me take responsibility for it, and let's talk through it, because now I got to see what the damage is over here with you, right? In this relationship.
Let me say, it sounds easy. Like, okay, just go ahead and share this information, right?
That part.
But let me say, there are a couple of things that came to my mind. The first is, where does God reside, right?
Yeah.
God is spirit.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I know for a fact that we don't talk about enough in terms of spiritual circles is the fact that as we do the work, it elevates us to where God lives. And a lot of times that conversation doesn't happen because we are down here in the dumps, worried about, well, how's she gonna feel? What's my fear around this, right? But you have to elevate the conversation into who do you desire to be, and start doing that. And this is not to elevate therapists and coaches and people, but sometimes it takes someone to help you see it.
Yeah.
To help you elevate out of it. Because again, we all have that blind spot where we can't see ourselves.
Right.
And sometimes it takes somebody to say, hey, elevate your conversation. I call it the upgrade. It's elevate your conversation to where you can become that thing. That's what Farron was just talking about. You can become this person that is what we might call vulnerable, or just open to a different conversation with your partner, because you have done the work of self-awareness. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? You've stopped long enough to say, how did I get here? Why am I thinking this? Why does this even feel like a difficult conversation for me? Can I tell somebody? And again, the deepest part of this conversation is the one where Farron was saying, and the healing happened. And now when it comes back into this conversation for me, you say it, Farron. What is that? What happens if somebody brings back that old conversation now that you have done that work? Because I want people to understand how when you do therapy, when you do coaching, when you do these things, how it elevates you in a different place. What happens if we now go back to that conversation of vulnerability, of player, of what does it do to you now? How does it hurt?
It does not hurt, because I took 100% responsibility for my behavior. I took 100% responsibility for the damage that I've done. I called those girls that I had communication with that I hurt.
Yeah.
I called them and I acknowledged my behavior, and I didn't apologize. I asked for forgiveness.
Yes.
What that did, it helped me, because forgiveness is for you first. So I acknowledged my behavior. And I got different responses. I got responses like, I knew you was crazy. Don't call me no more. Why are you calling me?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong. Like, why are you?
These are the conversations, by the way, that men are trying to avoid.
Yes. So so now what that does for me is I'm free from.
But you got freed from that conversation that you were trying to avoid.
Got free from the conversations I've been avoiding. Took responsibility for it, and I also own the player conversation, because if I tell the truth, my behavior was a label of such. Now, it could be labeled of a whole bunch of other things, but I embraced that as well. But what it also did was, for that woman, it could have set her free from an opportunity for her to look in her life and be for some forgiveness. And also what it does is if anybody ever goes to her and says, hey, whatever happened, you ever talk to Farron? Girl, the narrative could have been he was a jerk, he cheated on me, blah, blah, blah. But guess what that does today for her? You know what? That dude asked me for forgiveness. He cheated on me and I felt like this and this, but he took and he actually asked me for forgiveness. That changes the course of that relationship between, even if I never talk to her again.
Absolutely.
It also gives her a chance to be free from maybe she thought that she didn't do something that was good enough for that relationship to maintain. So that's why I share from self-forgiveness in all of these conversations, because it starts with us first as men. We have to be willing to tell the truth and take responsibility for our past experiences and the damages that we may cause. And yes, they may not want to talk to you ever again,
right?
But you've been able to deal with that with some courage, some confidence, with some strength, and then that relationship can be complete.
I just want to say, if anybody needs help, AlanEmmanuelTherapy.com. You can go there. I do the coaching. I want to share this because I think that sometimes people don't know where to start. I think that sometimes people are like, I don't know, what I'm supposed to do next.
Yeah.
ALAIN Emmanuel Therapy.com. Just reach out, and if I can't be the one to help you, I might know someone who can. But the goal is for you not to suffer in silence. And men deserve health in their mental health. They deserve to be open, to be loved. They deserve it. That's how I wanted to close out on that.
We got one more Sunday coming up around this men's mental health talk.
One more midnight.
One more talk next Sunday. So I hope, like I said, you want information about me, my link tree is Farron Dozier. You can go to farrond.com as well, because that's where my life of a series is. The life of a 5-year-old is written. The life of an 8-year-old is written. I'm working on a bunch. The life of a 14-year-old with this conversation we're talking about is coming out soon as well. So I'm writing all of them shortly. So, but thanks, Alan, man. Thank you, DBC, for hanging out, man.
Yeah, and, DBC.
I enjoyed it.
Appreciate y'all. Again, I got to get out of here. This is the Farron Dozier Show on KCAA Radio 106.5 FM. God bless. 10:50 a.m. The public service announcement, and then I'm out of here. I thank y'all for listening and tuning in. Shout us out. What's the count?
Some of us still carry the burden of battle. It threatens to drown us in our everyday lives. In battle, we had our weapons and combat gear to keep us safe, to keep us confident. But when we returned home, we were not armed with weapons and gear to cope with our own minds. I was lucky to find my combat gear, my mental weapon, and it's called Calmago. Calmago is a drug-free device that allows you to achieve calm in less than 3 minutes in moments of anxiety, stress, anger, panic, or insomnia, not with medication, but rather by activating the parasympathetic nervous system through breathing regulation and multisensory stimulation. A recent study has shown that Calmago decreases PTSD and anxiety levels in veterans, helping those who are suffering and having a long-lasting effect. Visit Calmago.com to learn how you can get Calmago through the VA or with a special veterans discount code.
Do you remember studying sickle cell in biology class? What's the Count on Sickle Cell Trait Prevention is here to bring you awareness, education, and prevention conversations around the risk factors of this inherited gene. Visit WDCONSCT.org.